Thanks so much for joining me for our Lenten midweek break. These next 6 weeks between now and Easter are going to challenge us in ways we never thought possible. You think it's been challenging so far. We can put the worst of winter behind us, but it's not yet spring. We have a vaccine, but it's not available to most of us yet. COVID rates are down, but we can't claim victory and throw open the doors just yet. The days are getting longer, but, well, you get the picture. We're in what we might call a liminal space, beyond the already, but not yet to whatever is next. It's also a season known as Lent. So while we're in this time in between, what better source to guide our journey than Jesus himself, as he spoke his last words to those who were there at the foot of the cross and to us all. Jesus' mission was accomplished, but his reward was yet to come. His words, these 7 last words, as they've come to be known, are what Saint Robert Bellarmine, an Italian Jesuit priest, described in 1618 as the last sermon which the Redeemer of the world preached as from an elevated pulpit to the human race, to you and to me. So I hope you'll join me each Wednesday as we consider these words together, hearing in them the depth of Jesus' pain as the circumstances would suggest, but also the depth of Jesus' love that is never dependent upon the circumstances. Now, first, a question for you. If you were writing to describe Jesus to those who didn't know him or know of him, what would you include? Well, it might depend on what you thought they most needed to hear. What would that have been during the years in which Luke was writing his gospel? Remember, the gospels are not simply news reports or first eyewitness accounts, but rather they were stories written to persuade their readers to think and believe a certain way. Those who followed Jesus were certain that the kingdom he talked about would be established either during his lifetime or at least shortly after his death. But now it was 80 to 90 years after Jesus' death. And when that didn't happen, the kingdom didn't come as they could see it. They began to see that they needed to write down what they knew about these events so they could be remembered and understood beyond their generation. And each writer included those things they most wanted people to know. The first of the 7 last words is from the Gospel of Luke. And in fact, Luke is the only one who includes it. So here are these words from Luke chapter 23, verses 32 through 34. 2 others, both criminals, were led out to be executed with him. When they came to a place called the Skull, they nailed him to the cross. And the criminals were also crucified, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." Luke leads with forgiveness when he tells his story. Why is that? First, we know that Luke wasn't Jewish. There was a lot of division in his world and a lot of blame going around as to who was responsible for Jesus' death. Was it the Jewish leadership? Was it the Roman government? Was it Jesus' own followers who deserted him, betrayed him? If you wanted this new Christian faith to be one that would bring people together, what better place to begin than with Jesus himself, asking God to forgive them all, even suggesting that they didn't understand the impact of their actions. Of course, this statement carries into our world as well. As we hear these words, we are witnesses to a conversation deep within the heart of God, the Trinity, the Son, the second person of the Trinity, asking the Father, the first person of the Trinity, to forgive those who reject him. And since Jesus asked this of the Father, rather than just offering forgiveness himself, as he had done many times throughout the Gospels, he sets this up as a model of praying, asking God to forgive those people that we can't bring ourselves to forgive. Well, that's certainly something we could benefit from. Luke shows us again how this works in the book of Acts, when we find a follower named Stephen being stoned for proclaiming Jesus as Christ the Lord. As he dies, he looks to heaven and he says, "Father, forgive them." Are there people in your life that you've had a hard time forgiving? Maybe the first word from Jesus will give you a way to begin that process by praying for God to forgive him or her or them on your behalf. Leaning on God to bring us to the place where we can forgive is certainly a necessary part of our journey. However, as helpful as that may be for us, we can't forget that these words of Jesus are not first and foremost about us. Whether or not we are able to offer forgiveness is not going to determine God's ability to reconcile with a world that has rejected its very creator. God can and does offer forgiveness, one so unimaginable, so incomprehensible, and God does it with or without us on our behalf. Now that's a reason for hope. So take that to your liminal space this week. Be sure to check the links that come with this e-blast. There's a Lenten study that begins this evening, and there's information as to how you can still join. Grace Youth Missions is putting together a way for us to support those in need in Texas. And even though the weather has taken a turn for the better, their needs are still great. So you'll find more information about that. And don't forget that we're back to in-person worship. It's just such a blessing to have people in that space once again. You need to register to be one of 50 persons or less. But we hope to see you there. We hope to be together to worship once again. But in the meantime, we hope you go and have a wonderful week. Celebrate this liminal time of reflection. Amen.